VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us today here on Crosstalk on the VCY America Network as we cover issues that is, well, they're usually ignored or covered up by the major media across the country, but we're here to keep you informed on vital issues. One of the issues that we have brought up from time to time is that of something called Agenda 21. You've often heard us talk about this, the United Nations, its impact, how it's being implemented across the nation. Well, there is an organization, matter of fact, there's several, but we have one of them with us today that has come under attack for their opposition to Agenda 21, and they are being billed as extremist group that actually has made the hate list of the Southern Poverty Law Center. We're going to be talking about not only this attack upon the organization, but also the concerns over Agenda 21 and its implementation. Joining us today is Tom DeWeese. He is the president of the American Policy Center. Tom is actually one of the nation's leading advocates for individual liberty, free enterprise, private property rights, personal privacy, back to basics education, and American sovereignty and independence. Tom, welcome back here to Crosstalk.
It's good to be back with you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Before we talk about the actual attack that's been launched against you personally, your organization, just set the foundation again for us. What exactly is Agenda 21?
Well, Agenda 21 is a document that came out of the 1992 Earth Summit that was sponsored by the United Nations. It was the culmination of several years of various other documents, various meetings, to come together, these non-governmental organizations like the Sierra Club, the Nature Conservancy, the Audubon Society, just thousands of these organizations working behind the scenes, putting various policies together. And slowly but surely, they kind of merged them together into one document, which became Agenda 21. What that stands for is Agenda for the 21st Century. And essentially what it's designed to be is, in their words, a comprehensive blueprint on how to reorganize human society based on environmental concerns. And but what's really, if it was just the environment we're talking about here, that's something to debate, that's something to discuss. But what the real plank of Agenda 21 that becomes all-encompassing to change every aspect of our lives is the social equity plank, social justice. You hear this word everywhere anymore, social justice. And what that really is about is redistribution of wealth. And what we're seeing is attacks on private property ownership. Those who advocate Agenda 21 openly say that private property ownership is a social injustice because some people can own property and profit from it and others cannot, and so that's not fair. And we're seeing this grow everywhere we turn. We're hearing not only social equity and social justice, we're hearing environmental justice. In other words, these words keep popping up, all meaning pretty much the same thing. It means reorganizing our society. And you have people talking about the fact that American jobs are leaving this country, factories are shutting down and going to China or Brazil or India or some other place. And people say, why? Why is that happening? Oh, it's because evil corporations want to make more money and they can't afford to pay Americans. That's not the case. The fact of it is that American industries are being shut down through the enforcement by the Environmental Protection Agency and other agencies of the government basically on environmental concerns. And you're creating a rust belt in the Midwest, in Youngstown, and Akron, and Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, and all over the country. Why are these jobs leaving here? That's part of the redistribution of wealth, American wealth, harmonizing America into the rest of the world is one of the ways they put it. This is a lot to do with Agenda 21 on the local level. You're seeing your local city councils, county commissions, and even state legislatures putting regulations together that give government control over what you can do on your property, what kind of businesses can be in your community, how all kinds of things that are focusing on your ability to drive your car. You're seeing energy prices go up. You're seeing water controls, things like this. All of this comes from this blueprint on how to change American society or world society.
Well, this attack coming against you personally and also against your organization from the Southern Poverty Law Center. And as I was on their website, I saw this. The Southern Poverty Law Center is dedicated to fighting hate and bigotry and to seeking justice for the most vulnerable members of our society. Using litigation, education, and other forms of advocacy, the center works toward the day when the ideals of equal justice and equal opportunity will be our reality. We track the activities of hate groups and domestic terrorists across America, and we launch innovative lawsuits that seek to destroy networks of radical extremists. So, folks, who are these radical extremists? Well, we find groups that they brand such as the Family Research Council. We all know what happened there, Tom, when a person actually went to the Southern Poverty Law Center website to find a hate group, and they went to Family Research Council to take out what they thought was their own social justice against this pro-family group.
They like to stir that kind of thing up and makes it very dangerous for some of us to carry on what we do. One of the real concerns about the Southern Poverty Law Center is that it has contracts with the Department of Homeland Security and some other agencies of the federal government, and you have seen Homeland Security come out with reports on domestic terrorism. They put out 3 or 4 of these, and they flat out list in there who a domestic terrorist is. It's anybody who advocates the Constitution. It's anybody who voted for Ron Paul. It's anybody who's against abortion. If you stockpile food in case something bad happens with the economy, anybody like that is deemed a potential domestic terrorist. And it's the Southern Poverty Law Center who has helped write these reports to paint us that way. And then they also have contracts with local police forces to train local policemen on how to spot a domestic terrorist. Hey, if you got an NRA bumper sticker on the back of the car, that makes it real easy for them. And, so this is where the real danger is. These guys, if they're just an organization that is advocating something, so be it. So am I. But when they've got that kind of power in a government that has the ability to arrest people, to keep us off of airplanes, to stop our ability to assemble because they've dubbed us a domestic terrorist, you got a problem. And that's what we're concerned about.
Well, earlier this year, Southern Poverty Law Center actually issued a 22-page report. I have a copy in front of me. It's called Agenda 21, the UN Sustainability and Right-Wing Conspiracy Theory. And I did a quick search, Tom, and I found that you are personally named in this report some 23 times.
Yep. And my picture is right on the front, along with Phyllis Schlafly and Glenn Beck. And, real honored.
Yeah, and your picture appears later in the report here as well. And as I take a look at the executive summary of this report, I'd like to get your comment on it. On page number 5, it says, Agenda 21 is not a treaty. It has no force of law, no enforcement mechanisms, no penalties, no significant funding. It's not even a top-down recommendation, seeking instead to encourage communities around the world to come up with their own solutions to overpopulation, pollution, poverty, and resource depletion. It is a feel-good guide that cannot force anyone anywhere to do anything at all. True or false?
I love creative writing. You can't say true or false, to tell you the truth, because of the way it's been set up. It is true that Agenda 21 is not a treaty, and it specifically on itself would not have the force of law. But you have to get into the mechanism on how this has been brought into our country. First of all, you had several thousand of these non-governmental organizations write this thing. You then had the Earth Summit with 50,000 people attending. These are government bureaucrats, these are NGOs, and 179 heads of state, including George H.W. Bush at the time. And they signed this. Did they do this just because they like to have a good party, or were they determined to make something happen? What happened after all that was done was these same NGO groups that wrote it at that level came into the U.S. federal government, and they began to work with congressmen. They began to work with federal agencies, and they created policies, they created programs, and particularly grant programs. Those grant programs came with very specific strings attached that had to do with controlling of water, controlling of energy, controlling of development, many other things. And then the same NGOs, persuaded or got President Clinton to sign an executive order to create the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Same people served on that council who helped write it in Agenda 21 in the first place. That began to create official U.S. policy there. So, it's not a treaty, it has no force of law, no. But step by step, these same people who had that, what they call a comprehensive blueprint, is what they call Agenda 21, began to implement it. They then went into state legislatures, got the state legislatures to pass regulations that told every county, every community they had to do a comprehensive development plan. Then the same NGOs went into the local communities, and here's your local councilman saying, what in the world is a comprehensive development plan? Don't worry, we've got it all right here for you. Here's all the paperwork, here's all the plans, the documents. We've even got the grant money for you. Bing, 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 bing. It becomes official policy of the United States.
And folks, it's being implemented in your local governments, in your local communities, municipalities, county governments, state governments, and certainly Tom's been with us before and in battling this on that level. Looking at this summary here too, it says virtually none of the outlandish claims about Agenda 21 are true. Now, Tom, you said they're involved in creative writing here, but they're accusing you of creative writing. Do you have proof for the claims that you're making about Agenda 21?
Sure. I've got all kinds of documents here. One of the interesting ones I've got is from 1996. This is a report from the United States of America to the United Nations. This is about a 100-page report that details what it is a report from the United States to the UN on how we are implementing Agenda 21. This is 4 years after Agenda 21 was introduced. Implementation of Agenda 21, review of progress made since the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development in 1992. If you take the chapters of Agenda 21 and lay it side by side with this report, each chapter, it's basically covered. And, I have that in my hand. I have a document from 1994. It's actually a newsletter from the American Planning Association. American Planning Association is one of the major planning groups in this country pushing Agenda 21, though they never use that term. But they're taking this grant money, and the policies, are very similar to, they're identical, actually. And in this report, down in one of the, there's a article in it. Want me to finish when we come back?
Sure. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. Tom DeWeese with us today, president of the American Policy Center. He and his organization, branded extremist, like a hate group, coming under attack. Why? Because they're in opposition to Agenda 21, standing up for private property rights, standing up for individual liberty. Oh my. Folks, we'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, geologist at ICR. Dr. Morris, popular news magazines often support evolution, don't they?
Yes, they do, Chris, and surprisingly, even more so than the scientific journals. In the scientific journals, often the claims are carefully made and tentative, as they should be in science. But in these news magazines, bold claims are made that are completely unwarranted by the evidence. Unfortunately, that's all most people read. Recently, Time magazine had a cover story, How Apes Became Human, describing a new discovery called Ardipithecus ramidus cadaba. This claim was made for a human ancestor, but the descriptions were all of a rather chimp-like creature. It was the cover painting, however, that showed an ape with human eyes, and that's what people remember. Chris, I got a better story. It's the Back to Genesis story, and it's a true story.
Check out our 12-part DVD series on the science of creation at unlockgenesis.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Our guest today is Tom DeWeese, president of the American Policy Center, and as we mentioned earlier, just a leading advocate in our nation for individual liberty, free enterprise, private property rights, personal privacy, back to basics education, American sovereignty, and independence, all those qualities that make him a target by the Southern Poverty Law Center, branding him as being a patriot. Wasn't there somebody else by the name of Washington and some of these other founders, Adams and so on, that were also called patriots, Tom?
Yeah, they were also called terrorists by the people they were fighting. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you were looking at reviewing some of the documentation there because the Southern Poverty Law Center has said that virtually none of the outlandish claims about Agenda 21 are true. And you were in the midst of giving us some of the evidence that you have. We could go hours with the evidence, but give us a little bit further summary of
Sure.
some of that.
You know, the interesting thing that I found as I was researching a lot of these to answer this very question was that up until about 2005, 2006, it was very easy to find documents where they were proudly saying, this is Agenda 21, hey, we worked on this is what we're doing. When we started to make it a national issue and speak out about it, suddenly it became, what? Never heard of it. Don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. The American Planning Association has on its website a whole section there about the truth about agenda, or their position with Agenda 21, and it basically says, nope, never heard of it. Well, again, this document I have here, this newsletter of theirs, this was produced in Northern California to their members, American Planning Association members up in that section of the country, and there's an article in it called "How Sustainable is Our Planning?" Sustainable development is basically the policy of Agenda 21. And here's what is, but 5 paragraphs down, there is this paragraph. It says, Vice President Gore's book, Earth in the Balance, addressed many of the general issues of sustainability. Within the past year, the President's Council on Sustainable Development has been organized to develop recommendations for incorporating sustainability into the federal government. Also, various groups have been formed to implement Agenda 21, a comprehensive blueprint for sustainable development that was adopted at the recent Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit. Now, in that one paragraph, you've tied together the American Planning Association with Al Gore, the President's Council on Sustainable Development, organizations that have been put together specifically to implement these programs, and Agenda 21 as a comprehensive blueprint. Mm. That's their words, not mine.
Tom, this is something that you're finding, regardless of Republican or Democrat, as far as who's in authority in the White House, who the chief executive is, the plan and agenda of Agenda 21 has been advancing.
It has. This is not a partisan thing. You can't just blame the Democrats on this. When George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush were in office, they did more to push this program forward than Democrats were sitting there going, really? We're going to get that too? So, you can't just blame it on one party. This has been a very bipartisan effort.
This is not the first time that the Southern Poverty Law Center has come out against you, is it?
No, this is about the 4th such attack that they've instigated. We held a series of national conferences. Started out with Freedom 21. Henry Lamb, who really is the man who kind of discovered Agenda 21, brought it to many of us in the property rights movement. He and I worked very closely together. We put on 10 national conferences. I put on another one after that. And we would find after we had our conferences, there would be this report from the Southern Poverty Law Center. They would sneak into our conferences, and then they would do these reports. The last one we had, if you watch the videotape of it, you'll hear me open the conference by saying, and if you're here from the Southern Poverty Law Center, will you please buy the video so this time you can quote us correctly?
My. But at the same time, the Southern Poverty Law Center attacking you has brought forth other publications now to stand against you, too.
Well, what happened here in between the end of March and the end of June, there was a coordinated attack of about 7 different major efforts. The American Planning Association put out a document called the Actions of Discontent. They have been trying to figure out how to word things and get stop us from going into public meetings and disrupting them by asking questions like, who are you, who funds you, where's this coming from, that kind of thing. They're trying to find words to use to get around us, to neutralize us. And that was the first thing. It came out at the end of March. About a week later, then came the Southern Poverty Law Center's report that you just were talking about. And after that, the Natural Resources Defense Council put out a report against us, again naming me. The treehugger.com, my favorite website of all, called me the conspiracy king. The gentleman who wrote that article wrote another one earlier, a year or so ago, called the Exposing the Influence Behind the Anti-Agenda 21 Anti-Sustainability Agenda. This guy named Lloyd Alter. And what's interesting, he focused the entire thing on me and said in that I was secretly funded by Exxon and the Koch brothers, and that what we needed to do to stop us anti-Agenda 21 people was to tie us to big oil, because that's what would do it. In other words, he's lying, because I've never, ever received a check from any corporation like that. I wrote to the board of directors or to the chairman of the board of Exxon one day, and I said, I'm taking your heat. Where's my check? Never even heard back from him. That's a pretty funny way to treat a guy who is supposed to be so important to them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing that's evident from looking at this Southern Poverty Law Center warning report about you and others, this right-wing conspiracy theory, I guess the upside of this, it seems to indicate, Tom, that you're having an effect in your outreach, that people are responding and change is taking place.
Yes, this is the interesting thing. I've said for years that the whole Agenda 21 issue is built on a house of cards or a house of lies. And if it could be exposed, if people begin to see the truth behind it, it could collapse overnight. And what I'm seeing is that they're extremely worried about that. They're worried about what we're doing. And if you look through this report from the Southern Poverty Law Center, there are sections in it where it just says that local communities have got to stop listening to all this garbage and just do it. To stop. It says the media needs to stop reporting on Agenda 21 as if it were a bona fide controversy and plainly state the facts about the plan. And communities around the country, some of which have abandoned work on sustainability plans because of the heat, need to be encouraged to stop or to return or to start to develop such plans in tandem with responsible groups like the American Planning Association. In other words, just shut up and do it. This is exactly the same argument that the global warming people are using. You can find 7 people left in the science community who says that global warming is real, and thousands on the other side are saying, wait a minute, not so fast. And, well, don't listen to all those people over there. Just listen to us. Mm-hmm. And it's the same argument. And that's the only way they have to argue, because when you start dealing with facts, you start laying the facts down, they suddenly just say, I don't want to hear that. Just do what we need. Just trust us.
So you're seeing connection then between Agenda 21 and this whole push toward the global climate change issues going on? Oh,
it's a direct connection. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, if global warming, climate change was to finally, once and for all, be abandoned, to be proven that it absolutely does not, man-made problems that don't exist, as is really becoming the case, if they were to admit that today, then all of their arguments for all of the sustainable development issue pretty much go away. And so they lose all their credibility. They lose all the environmental Armageddon is the scare tactic that they use to enforce these plans. I've heard them say that, people saying, well, I have my rights. I got my property rights. I've got my, my right to a limited government, a constitution. And I've heard them say, you can have all the rights you want, but when you don't have a planet to stand on anymore, what good are they going to do you? And so that's the scare tactic they have used to get Americans and other people around the world to throw their liberties on a bonfire and say, okay, well, we've got to do this.
And folks, I would like to encourage you, if all goes as planned, Lord willing, we have scheduled to be with us on Crosstalk on Thursday, Dr. Cal Beisner from the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Development, who will be addressing further this so-called global climate change matter. Tom, you have been accused of being violent. You've been accused of being an advocate of violence. You have been accused of being hateful. Are you?
No, not at all. I've never, ever said words like that. In fact, whenever I'm somewhere where you go to meetings, and there's always some idiot there saying, well, they come from me, I'm going to get my rifle out. And I'm going, no, that's the worst possible thing you can do. That you're going to end up seeing that this whole crush come down on us and we won't be able to assemble or anything else. Don't do that. I fully believe that this is a political issue. When I do say things like this is a war, yeah, it's a war of ideas, it's a war of policies. I'm purely talking about it on that level. But I've been in places where I'm giving talks, and I've said this is a war. We've got to go after this. And one of these guys will be standing there, and I've had people tell me. The guy looked at him and said, He's advocating violence. No, I'm not. Mm-hmm. I don't believe it.
So when you say we've got to fight this, you're not talking about picking up arms. You're talking about getting involved in your local governments and et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we're achieving. That's what's happening. And when you go into the tactics that they use, one of their favorite tactics is a facilitated meeting. And what this means is a guy who is trained in psychology, knows here's what the outcome of this meeting needs to be. Here's the agenda. And if he's really good at it, he directs the audience to the point where they believe it was all their idea. And then they say, see, the community decided this. They'll do such things as they'll hold up a photograph of a rundown, dilapidated area, and then they'll hold up a nice new shiny building or a nice new shiny little neighborhood and say, which one do you like? Well, I like the pretty one, please. You're in favor of planning. And it's that juvenile that they do these things. And if you're sitting there and you start asking questions, if you're being effective with it, they may begin to deride you. And they would say, well, this is so simple, even Tom could understand this. Like you're such an idiot that you don't really get it. And they intimidate people who are afraid to speak out. But we are starting to train people how to deal with these kind of meetings. And as
a matter of fact, you've got a training session coming up.
We do. I started really pretty much after all these attacks started this summer or the spring. I thought, okay, now the war's on. And there I go. See, now I'm sounding violent again. What are we going to do? And I started to put together a series of free webinars to train people how to fight back on this, to give them every detail. We have no limit on how many we're going to have. We do them once a month. We've done 3 so far. The next one is this coming Sunday. And we really are going to start to focus on how to fight back starting Sunday. And they're archived on our website. You can sign up for them at AmericanPolicy.org. If you can't be there on Sunday for it, as I know a lot of people can't, but you can go into the archives and you can still see them later. They're free. You can see them as many times as you want to. So
we'll pick up with more on this. AmericanPolicy.org is a website. AmericanPolicy.org. Folks, if you'd like to start getting on board here on our phones with questions you'd like to ask about sustainable development, Agenda 21, the redistribution of wealth, call us at 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829. We'll be right back.
An unfamiliar car parks near your house, and 2 nice-looking people approach your front door. The doorbell rings, and after exchanging pleasantries, your unexpected guests offer you some literature from the Watchtower Society. What will you say? What should you say? Ron Rhodes from Reasoning with the Scriptures Ministries will guide you through realistic dialogues with Jehovah's Witnesses in his book, Conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses. In an easy-to-read fashion, Ron guides the reader through realistic dialogues with Jehovah's Witnesses, pointing out falsehoods to watch for, important points to introduce, and sample conversations. He covers the important doctrines and key points for Jehovah's Witnesses to question the teaching of the Watchtower and be drawn to faith in Jesus Christ. Conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses is available from VCY America for a donation of $16. To obtain your copy, call 1-800-729-9829. 1-800-729-9829.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America, presenting information to keep you informed on vital issues impacting us across this nation. Tom DeWeese with us today, president of American Policy Center, and his group, and he personally coming under attack from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Why? Because of his opposition for Agenda 21, this so-called social justice, the redistribution of wealth, environmental justice, sustainable development, and on the various titles go. Tom, that break came upon us. You mentioned you've got a webinar coming up this coming Sunday, and again, the website where people can get more information?
Our website's AmericanPolicy.org, O-R-G, and as you go in the front page of it, right at the top, there is a little thing that says webinars. Just click on that, and you can just sign up for them. And as I said, the archives, once you signed up, the archives are there. You can see the previous 3, and then we're going to have one a month and all the way through the end of the year and probably on into next year.
Okay, again, that's AmericanPolicy.org. And you'll find another button there for Agenda 21 where you can become more informed on it. One other issue, and I see the lines are all packed here. Coming up, I saw here November 10th, 11th, and 12th in Japan is going to be this World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development. They talk about having 4 objectives. Number 1 is to celebrate a decade of action. 2, to reorient education to build a better future. 3, to accelerating action for sustainable development. And then 4 is setting the agenda for ESD beyond the Sustainable Development beyond 2014. This is going to be more the same old thing that's been tried for many times.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and at they had the Earth Summit or the Rio Plus 20 Summit in 2012, which was 20 years, celebrate 20 years of Agenda 21. And they announced then they were going to stop using the term Agenda 21 and they were going to use the term sustainable development. And which I thought was wonderful because I was building an army across the country of people who were, making the word sustainable development political poison. So go ahead, fine. But this is, celebrating a decade of what they've done and what we're going to do for the future. And it's, to tell you the truth, a lot of this is just jibber jabber because they haven't accomplished anything in the last 4 or 5 of these conferences, particularly the ones on global warming. They're trying desperately to get some kind of a treaty, to get the rule of law, and particularly they're trying to get this massive. I talked about redistribution of our wealth to other countries. They want to penalize the industrial countries for creating an unsustainable environment. And so they want to put this big slush fund together that all these countries have to pay into, that they can then redistribute that to other countries who have suffered because of our industrialization. And that's where they keep running into the roadblock because the industrial nations keep saying, we can't afford that. And that's when they keep collapsing.
Let's get to the phone lines here. We're going to begin in the state of Montana. Natalie, thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hi. Tom, my question is, if MAP 21, does it have anything to do with what you're talking about on Agenda 21? We found out recently that that's a law that President Obama signed into law in 2012.
What's it called? MAC 21? Is that what you said?
No, MAP, M-A-P, MAP 21.
MAP 21, M-A-T.
I don't know that specific term.
No, M-A-P as in Peter.
Oh, MAP 21.
MAP 21, yeah. Okay, yeah, those are, they're mapping out the country and showing it how they want it to look.
That's through the
term 21
Federal Highway Administration, this moving ahead for the 21st century thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Those are all step-by-step little blueprints of how they put it together, and this will cover this area. This will cover that area, and they're all interconnected.
Because that is already a law. Are we going to be able to reverse that?
I'm not so sure that's a law as much as some kind of an edict down from the agencies.
Okay.
Then become very speculative as to whether they are enforceable or not.
Right, because my husband and I have a small business, and that basically has shut us down.
What's it do to you?
Law. They their insurance policies for our type of business just went through the roof. So.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, all across the country, one of the ways they're getting people out of certain rural areas and like along coastlines and so forth. Now you've got FEMA coming in with all these floodplains that they're creating, and insurance companies won't insure you if you're inside this floodplain. And
part of this too, Tom, is the bike and pedestrian programs as well.
Absolutely, all those things. When the agenda is to get people out of rural areas and herd them into cities, which is one of the plans for this, it's called the Wildlands Project, and making it more difficult to drive your cars in the cities. You won't have cars. You'll have, if they have their way about it, you'll have bicycles and you'll have light rail trains and that kind of public transportation. And you see more and more and more of that coming into the cities. And so, yeah, these are all part of that agenda.
Thank you, Natalie. We appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. VG in Milwaukee, go ahead.
Hi, Tom. First of all, I want to say I'm a great fan of yours. You're doing great work, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We'll keep doing it.
And I'm almost positive you're so intelligent you know what I'm going to tell you. But I disagree slightly on your policies. I think you need to tell America and Americans that these people down at the thing in Atlanta and throughout the country that created hate crimes and other things that are against Americans are a result of the 2,600 year ago divorce of God by the Levites who started their own...
VG, you're going a whole different direction than this program is today. We are dealing with this Agenda 21, the whole aspect of social justice, etc. But thank you for talking to us, and thank you for the accolades you've given to Tom here as well. Brad in West Dallas, Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Hey, Jim. These agendas and lies that are put forth by NGOs and groups like the Southern Poverty Spreading Law Center are nothing but pits and snares for us. And King David wrote about that. In Psalm 140, he said, "The proud have hidden a snare for me in cords. They have spread a net by the wayside." In 141, he says, "Keep me from the snares they have laid for me and the traps of the workers of iniquity, and let them fall into their own nets." I like to pray these things to God when I hear, the news and about groups like this, because that's exactly what they're doing. They can't come out and be honest about what they're doing. They have to lie and cheat and do whatever. So I just encourage other Christians out there to pray these psalms and add them to their prayers for these things that are happening in the world today.
Thank you, Brad. Tom, in essence, that's what we're having. We're having a lot of snares and traps that are being laid down through Agenda 21, and it's only after we get to a certain point that people are going to realize, okay, we've been caught.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened. For about 15 or so years, as we started to try to sound the alarm against Agenda 21 at the very beginning, people weren't listening. The only people who were really working with us on this and understanding what was happening were ranchers, people in the timber industry, people in the mining industry that were the first victims of this, and they saw it coming at them. And people in the cities were silent. They didn't see it. They didn't feel it. And all of a sudden, it became very clear, and people began to rise up. And that's what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years. And these guys who are putting all this together, they've really had 15 or so years, or more than that really, of nobody standing in their way, nobody standing up to them, and they don't know how to deal with it. And it's really funny because the American Planning Association has just been panicked over this, and they put together what they called a glossary for the public. And this was to train their people how to talk to us now to get around all of us protesters. And they started saying, here's a bunch of words don't use anymore in your presentations because that's like a red flag to these crazy people. And I started to joke, if they keep this up, they're going to have to do all their presentations in sign language because they won't have any words left. Because it doesn't matter what words they use. It's the fact of what they put together.
Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Zoe in Illinois, you're on the air.
I have a question. I'm on an advisory committee for a regional planning commission. We don't really have any power, but they have us up there so they look good, so they can say they're getting input from the public. Should I stay on committees like that so that I know what's going on, or should I, in protest, leave?
No, absolutely stay there. You know what's going on. Be the first to stand up and say no to things, to question things. Know inside information. Who's behind it? Who you're listening? Who's
right.
coming in and talking to you? And where's the grant money coming from? And that sort of thing.
Right.
It's not that you don't have any power, because let me give you this quote just to help you out here.
Okay.
The UN Commission on Global Governance said this: regionalism must precede globalism. We foresee a seamless system of governance from local communities, individual states, regional unions, and up through the United Nations itself. That is everywhere you turn now. What these NGO groups do, they come into a community and they declare themselves stakeholders. They're not stakeholders, they're carpetbaggers. You're the stakeholder. You're the one who has to live on what's put together after they're gone. But they begin to use local government, pressure it, bring money in, help their campaigns, whatever. They begin to pressure them, and they put together little non-elected commissions and boards, and right up to putting regional commissions together. Regional government is becoming the way of future government, and it is that much farther away from the people. They're not elected, but they're making in a lot of places, they're making the rules. And local elected officials are saying, oh, well, the regional commission said we have to do this, so that's how it works. And that is absolutely the opposite of a free society.
Right. Well, thank you, and I appreciate what you do for us.
And Zoe, or Tom, I'm sure you would appreciate if Zoe hears things taking place in her region to inform your organization, and you'll help blow the trumpet on it.
Absolutely. Any information like that we can get, I want to find all the facts we can to help people fight back, and anything we can get, we'll use it.
Okay, I have one other quick question. I'm the only conservative on this committee. Should I take your literature and hand it out to people on this board? Or would that just label me and get me kicked off?
It might do that. It's probably at least lay low for a while, get all the information you can. It's rare that we have somebody like you on one of those kind of positions.
I know.
So, I don't want to lose you.
I'm only actually going to be on there about 3 more months because my term's going to end, unfortunately.
When you get to the end of the term, on your last day, bring all this stuff in and say, I just want you guys to know the truth here.
Thanks, Tom.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Zoe. Appreciate your call here today. We're just 30 seconds from a break, so Mark, hang on, and Monroe will get to your call next. I'm looking at the planning.org website, Advanced Training for Practicing Planners. Here we have community food systems, transportation innovations in biking and parking, suburban redevelopment. It's a comprehensive plan, Tom.
That's exactly right, and their statement of principles, that's the key, to plannersnetwork.org. We believe planning should be a tool for allocating resources and eliminating the great inequalities of wealth and power in our society, because the free market has proven itself incapable of doing this.
Folks, we'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Tom DeWeese with us today. He and his organization under attack, being called extremist, part of hate groups. Why? Because of their opposition to Agenda 21. We'll be back in 1 minute.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. That's worldviewweekend.com. We're on number 14 of our list of 16 reasons the Church of Rome and Word of Faith can merge, as Kenneth Copeland and Pope Francis have been calling. Number 14, both these groups are committed to social justice, or the common good, which is really socialism. The founder of the New Apostolic Reformation, C. Peter Wagner, said that warfare prayer is not an end in itself, but a means of opening the way for the kingdom of God to come, not only in evangelism, but also in social justice. Pope Benedict in 2009 put out a encyclical calling for reform of the UN so it could be a world political authority with teeth. He called for global tax. He called for worldwide redistribution from rich countries to poor countries. Both groups can unite because they're both committed to social justice and a social gospel. Our website is worldviewweekend.com.
Looking at this report here from the Southern Poverty Law Center, Agenda 21, the UN Sustainability and Right-Wing Conspiracy Theory, part of their purpose in putting this out, they said it's time to finally call out the conspiracy theorists, the politicians who spread falsehoods about Agenda 21, and its effects need to be shamed by other politicians, by editorial boards and other commentators, and by the citizenry at large. Tom, part of the reason for their putting out this report is to shame you.
I think that's the whole reason, because as I said, there were like 7 of these attacks at once, and I went through about 4 of them, but then they went to Newsweek magazine, did a cover article on this. Fortune magazine did an article on it, and what the focus of those articles, they all came from the Southern Poverty Law Center. In fact, in the Fortune magazine article, Rosa Corey, who is the head of Democrats against Agenda 21, was being interviewed, and they suddenly brought in the Southern Poverty Law Center and ICLEI, which is one of the main UN organizations pushing this, to counter what she was saying. So as usual, 2-to-1, that's more fair than we usually get it, but that's what they do, and they team up on you, and there's nothing fair about anything that they do. It's bullying tactics of the first degree.
Mark in Monroe, Wisconsin, thanks for your patience. You're on the air.
Yeah, I think the tables should be turned here. I think if people like Tom are going to be labeled as terrorists, I think it would be appropriate if these anti-patriots should be labeled as hatriots. That's my comment.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the things that I'm calling for is there should be a congressional investigation of the Southern Poverty Law Center and a look into its nonprofit status, because it is contracting with, as I said before, the Department of Homeland Security and some other agencies. It's working with police departments and labeling us as domestic terrorists. That's serious. That is something that people need to look at. And when you see their definition of what a domestic terrorist is, we're not talking about somebody who's going in and blowing up buildings and doing things like the Weathermen used to do with Bill Ayers and Bernadine Doran. We're talking about people who are meeting in meetings and they're learning this information and they're saying, I believe the Constitution is the law of the land, and these are my political positions. This is what I believe in, which is supposed to be our right to free speech, and suddenly that makes us some kind of dangerous terrorist. And as you said earlier, Jim, what they say to us in our they've gone to our meetings and they've come out and they've said we are advocating violence and so forth. Sheriff Richard Mack was one of the people they picked out at was one of our conferences. He used our videotapes to show that he did not say anything they accused him of saying, and they had to back down.
Matthew, you're next in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I got a really fast question for you. We always hear the word sustainable with Agenda 21. I've got a friend of mine that has done organic farming for at least 15 years. But now I learned just a few months ago that he can put different types of sprays on his crops that he never did before. And I asked him about that, and I said, I thought that you always had to rotate with alfalfa, and you always had to put organic on it. Well, he said, oh, you're not talking organic, you're talking about sustainable farming. Now, that's the first time I really ever heard that from an organic farmer, so he made he differentiated between organic versus something now that's sustainable. And I just want to ask your guest, is there something, is this something with Agenda 21 that's kind of slipped in and now they call it sustainable farming?
This is a very important point, and your friend's absolutely correct. There is sustainable farming and there's organic farming. Sustainable farming is a top-down control. You have all kinds of bureaucrats and different agencies that are telling farmers under sustainable farming that this is the way you have to grow your crops. You can only use this much energy, this much water, or this much fertilizer, and they might even say you can only grow this crop, this kind of crop. And it is absolute top-down, and it makes the farming much more expensive, much more difficult. And I believe eventually what it all it leads to is massive corporate farms, and the small farmer is put out of business through it. And in fact, in in Vermont, there is a college there that teaches sustainable farming, and you will find there a herd of oxen that no tractors. We're going to have oxen pull the plow. So sustainable farming means Davy Crockett at this point.
Matthew, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Davy in Milwaukee, you're on the air.
Hi. Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, well, I was calling because I wanted to ask your speaker if he's ever heard of Roger Revelle. I think he was a guy who began the global warming scare, and he used to be a professor of Al Gore, who's now pretty much involved in all this Agenda 21 stuff now.
Yeah, he's one of the leaders of it, as a matter of fact, yes.
Yeah, and I saw a YouTube video of a former meteorologist called John Coleman, who pretty much exposed it as well.
John Coleman is a brilliant man, and he has spoken out very clearly on this. He actually is the man who started the Weather Channel, and he has spoken out time and time again against all of that, and he's very much somebody should be listened to, yes.
Davey, thanks for the call. More on the global warming, so-called, coming up on Thursday's program. Appreciate your call. Let's go next. Finally, here to Utica, New York, and Elizabeth, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm a first-time caller. I love your show.
Thanks for listening.
And I just have a quick question for your guest. My husband and I live in the city. We own a home in the city. It's getting really bad here, and we're looking at moving probably about a half an hour north into a very rural area. And my question is, do you think that in the near future that would be a mistake to do that because it's a half an hour away from my husband's job?
Yeah. You're asking the question because you're concerned about where this is going to lead, and so am I. If they have their way, yeah, it can be a problem. One of the things they're doing to try, first of all, you're leaving because you want to escape these cities, because there's crime, because there's inefficiency, because everything's too high.
We got 30 seconds, Tom.
Bad government, yeah. The other thing is that they're using things to keep you out of there, like banning septic tank use and things like that, which make it impossible if you live in the rural areas. So it is a real concern, and it's something you need to take a real strong look at, unfortunately.
Elizabeth, we're out of time. Thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. We appreciate that. And Tom, you do have a website where our listeners can obtain more information on these issues.
Yes, AmericanPolicy.org. We've got all kinds of tools on there, that some booklets and so forth we've created on this. And again, you can sign up for our webinar for this coming Sunday just by going in there.
AmericanPolicy.org, and folks even click on Agenda 21 there, and they've got much helpful information on this very issue. Tom DeWeese, our guest today. Tom, thank you so much for carving out some time to joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And folks, thanks for joining us here today on Crosstalk as we keep you informed on vital issues impacting us across the nation.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. Or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.